Hi everyone, my name is Sonia Strunk and I am here to review the media book I chose, which is The Biology of Desire, Why Addiction is Not a Disease. This is by Mark Lewis. I chose this book because I have a lot of background in 12-step groups and they constantly tell you that addiction is a disease. Lately I've been questioning that, so I thought this would be a good place to start. Mark Lewis he's a doctor, he begins to talk about why he believes it's not a disease, and he thinks that treatment centers brand addiction as a disease, which in turn branding it as a disease leads to obstacles in healings. In this place, people do not take responsibility for their addiction because they just say, I have a disease, and I've seen this happen quite a lot. In this book, we go through the true life stories of 5 people in their journey through recovery. The first one was Johnny. He drank alcohol. He was an alcoholic, and he got sober through counseling. Natalie, she was a heroin addict, and she went to jail, then became a social worker. And Brian was a meth addict. He started going to 12-step meetings, and then he became a counselor and started his own therapeutic community. Donna was she was addicted to painkillers. She was caught stealing her family's medication out of a suitcase. She went to treatment. And Amy, she was addicted. She was a bulimic and anorexic. So all of these people traveled down the similar road of addiction. And in here he talks about addiction is an unintended consequence of our brain seeking pleasure and relief. Meaning that many people seek pleasure and relief, but people in recovery do it constantly over and over again. In the brain reconstruction with normal learning and development, but this is accelerated when highly addictive rewards are repeated in pursuit, is what he states in here. So we do these repetitions over and over and over again until they almost become a habit, is how he talked about. He talks about the choice theory, how yes, we do have a choice, which is also we learn about in our addictive behaviors book. And I believe it is a choice, and so does he, but we have all of these external factors, like being sick and not feeling well and knowing that drink or drugs will fix this sickness. It's kind of like the negative and positive reinforcements that we also learned about. He discussed what drugs are and how they alter our brain mechanism. We focus on the behaviors and what mechanisms control our brain is controlled by. He thinks we're all controlled by desire, which I think is a good point. That yes, many people run off desire. Whether he talks about in here also whether it's drugs, alcohol, love. Like we seek drugs the same way people seek love, their first love. And we look for that over and over and over again, that feeling, but we never get it. And here he also discusses how addicts engage in motivated repetition, causing neural pathways to change. These to synaptic patterns that reinforce themselves over countless repeated occurrences. He discusses in here, it's a creepy vine that eventually strangles the flowers in the garden. So like I said, we continuously repeat these behaviors over and over and over again, so they're embedded in our brain, and that's where they rewire the brain. We're in here, we're focused on the now factor. Addicts focus on what's right here, right now. I'm going to get this fixed and I'm going to feel better right now. They don't ever take, and he refers to it in here as the now factor. So we don't ever take the time to think about what's going to happen tomorrow or the consequences that come from it, addicting, because we don't think it's going to make it that far. So what the present is everything to the addict. So, and what will stop the addict is the ability to imagine the future, imagine something better for them. And to that, what would do that were people around them, friends, family, social support was a big factor in finding recovery and letting the addict see that there is more to life than just drugs, and there is a day after tomorrow and tomorrow. when people talk about the disease factor of addiction, it takes away the responsibility of the person, is how Mark Lewis explains it. And if we have a disease, that means we don't have any control, but we do have absolute control over our addiction. So it's like saying, well, you have a disease, so you can't control what happens to it, but you have to take control of your own recovery in order to stop using. And if we say it's a disease, it takes responsibility off the person and leaves them as a helpless victim. Addiction treatment centers, he also discusses in here, considers addiction as a disease. So what that means is the person's fate is left up to the individual, person's fate is left up to professionals to decide what they should do. And I can say that I was taught that in treatment. People told me to sit down and shut up because I didn't know what was good for me, and my very best thinking got me there. So, and I think that's kind of not how it should be. I think people people are involved in their own treatment plans, are involved in what they want to do, their goals. Before, it was a cookie cutter episode. This was what you were going to do. You were going to stay sober. You were going to get a job, and that was it. But now we can open it up to where treatment centers do treatment plans with the patient, and they can decide for themselves what they want to do with their life, because they should have a say-so in what they do with their life. He talks about, the last thing I want to say is, he talks about in here, the main thing is our compulsive behaviors that we have, that the addicts have when they're using, become impulsive. So these are automatic things that they just get up and do. And when we change that and we find new ways for the person to live their life, be happy, that's when they learn to change. And then the brain's neuroplasticity then goes back to these new ways and stays away from these old ways. A lot of this is what, as I said, we have discussed throughout this class. And I would suggest this book. It's an excellent book. If you were going to read something, I definitely would take this one, because it did open my eyes to a lot of change in this. And that's all I have. Thanks for a great class. Bye.